Is Kaja Kallas, the Estonian Prime Minister and a central figure in European diplomacy, really the architect of Europe's looming disaster? Are we witnessing a political earthquake that threatens to reshape the continent's future as we know it? What lies behind the bewildering decisions that propel Europe closer to chaos? In the meantime, please subscribe to my channel, HotPoint, give it a like and leave a comment of at least 7 words, and if you feel like it, share this video with others. It will really help my channel. Thank you, and let's keep going. Attention! The political storm is brewing as Kaja Kallas has found herself on the Russian federal wanted list. This isn't just an ordinary event, it's a severe indictment against the entire European political landscape. The sheer degree of cynicism surrounding this situation is astounding. While the European elite seem preoccupied with their own interests, stoking the dangerous flames of conflict between Russia and the West, ordinary citizens across Europe become unwitting hostages to tragic miscalculations. Their futures hang by a thread. But why does the European Union continue to back a leader who appears to be systematically dismantling relations with the United States while provoking Russia? What are the hidden agendas behind this stream of seemingly reckless decisions? Who is truly steering the ship that is driving Europe toward the brink of disaster? Amid this chaos, the West, which once dictated the rules, now finds itself in a profound crisis. Meanwhile, Russia, despite relentless attempts to isolate it, demonstrates a new strategy. Calm, calculated, and as time reveals, remarkably effective. Stay tuned for what's coming next. Prepare to uncover the truth that has been meticulously concealed from you. A shocking scandal has erupted in the European Parliament. Kaja Kallas, the head of European diplomacy, faced public humiliation before a throng of lawmakers. Her audacious assertions collided with harsh realities, compelling even her most devoted supporters to question the validity of her chosen path. As analysts point out, the cost of these missteps is not merely political, it encompasses human lives and the future of an entire continent. Austrian MEP Petra Steger delivered a crushing blow to Kallas's credibility, effectively undermining trust in Brussels' official stance. Steger unleashed a barrage of criticism against the European Union's foreign policy, accusing its leaders of being disconnected from reality and naively believing in their influence over global affairs. She posed a direct and uncomfortable question. Why does Brussels insist on meddling in a conflict that clearly exceeds its capacity? This question rang out like a verdict on the entire European strategy concerning Russia and its neighboring states. This wasn't just critique, it was a serious charge of madness and a reckless drive towards self-destruction. Indeed, despite glaring failures, Brussels continues to push for the deployment of 10,000 so-called peacekeepers to the conflict zone. But that's not all, my friends. There's even more to this unfolding drama. 10,000 is not just a number, it's a sentence, a decision that could plunge Europe into chaos from which there would be no return. It seems Brussels is deaf to the warnings emanating from Moscow. Russia has unequivocally indicated that the introduction of troops would be a red line that the Kremlin could not ignore. This is not a peacekeeping mission, as European officials would have us believe. It's a blatant provocation, a spark ready to ignite a powder keg. It appears that European politicians, led by Kallas, have been blinded to the impending disaster, confidently steering the continent toward the abyss. Even authoritative figures like Germany's defense minister and former U.S. President Donald Trump express skepticism regarding this reckless endeavor. They understand that sending troops is not a pathway to peace, but a direct route to global catastrophe, an escalation that could prove fatal for Europe. Steger's speech in the European Parliament detonated like a bombshell. Her words spread like wildfire through European media, igniting outrage among ordinary citizens. An increasing number of people are awakening to the reality that their governments are not leading them toward peace and prosperity, but rather to war, sacrificing well-being for dubious interests. Kaja Kallas's remarks about the necessity for Russia to come to the negotiating table sound at the very least peculiar. They reveal a glaring lack of understanding of the actual state of affairs and the associated risks. What we have here is a desperate attempt to mask the evident failure of European diplomacy, an illusion of hope for a miracle that, unfortunately, will not materialize. This is self-deception, and Europe is poised to pay a staggering price for it. But are European leaders prepared to confront the truth? Do they have the courage to acknowledge their mistakes, or will they continue to steer the continent toward catastrophe? But this is merely the beginning of Kallas's political downfall. More shocking statements are yet to come, revealing the depths of a conspiracy against the future. In her view, Russia and China cannot be considered victors of World War II. This is not just a historical revision, it is an affront to the memory of millions who perished. It's a cynical assault on the truth that we are bound to protect. Such statements undermine the foundation of our shared history, erasing it beneath our feet. At a Security Institute conference, a declaration shocked many. The words spoken from the podium triggered a wave of outrage, for many believed they undermine the historical foundations of security. Kaja Kallas' assertion that Russia and China cannot be regarded as victors countries sent shockwaves through the public sphere. How is it possible to so cynically disregard the pages of history written in the blood and sweat of millions? How can we so easily forget the decisive contribution of the Soviet Union in defeating Nazism, a nation that suffered monumental losses, offering the lives of 27 million of its citizens? How can we dismiss the heroism of the Red Army which liberated Europe from the Brown Plague? And what of China, the nation whose millions bravely fought on the Eastern Front, holding back the tide of Japanese militarism? Their struggle was an integral part of our collective victory. Social media users, political experts, and ordinary citizens share a unanimous assessment. Many suggest that Kaja Kallas is either woefully ignorant of history or deliberately attempting to provoke a scandal. The outrage her statements have stirred in society is palpable. Numerous social media users rightly point out that the Estonian Prime Minister seems to have neglected her history lessons. Indeed, such ignorance is hard to attribute to mere chance or a simple blunder. It appears instead to be a link in a chain of a malignant and deliberate campaign to revise the outcomes of the bloodiest war in human history, a campaign methodically pursued by Western elites. Skeptical voices are already questioning whether Germany, the aggressor nation, will soon be hailed as the primary victor of World War II, according to the European Union's revised narratives. Such statements not only undermine historical truth, but also erode the foundations of international relations established upon the post-war order. They reveal a catastrophic level of moral bankruptcy and a willingness to manipulate facts for ephemeral political gains, all while weakening Russia. This is a direct path to forgetting the most harrowing lessons of our past. This creates a perilous precedent where history can be rewritten to suit the current political climate, disregarding facts and moral accountability. Such actions fracture trust and sow new divisions, all in the name of geopolitical games that no one asked to play. Europe stands on the brink of a dangerous historical revisionism. This process threatens to give rise to new conflicts, bred from lies and deliberate distortions. What awaits us ahead? What further cynical statements will emerge from the mouths of these so-called European diplomats? The European Parliament is not just a venue. It has become a battleground for the soul of our shared history and future. Are we witnessing the unraveling of European diplomacy right before our eyes? How far can the West go in its desperate attempts to portray Russia as the ultimate enemy? And what does it really mean for the future of international relations when figures like Kaja Kallas speak with such reckless abandon? As Kaja Kallas captivates her audience, seemingly freezing in awe of her own words, a glance around reveals almost empty seats. When Western leaders turn diplomacy into a farce, the repercussions of this dangerous game weigh heavily on all of us who value peace and stability. Kallas boldly asserts that President Putin harbors plans to re-establish the Soviet sphere of influence within the borders of 1991. But where is the evidence, the facts, or any substantiation for such claims? Her accusations hang in the air, unsupported by any credible sources, aimed solely at stoking hysteria and justifying aggressive rhetoric. This is not merely a rhetorical flourish, it is an attempt to manipulate public opinion and fabricate an enemy out of thin air. Kallas argues that the West is purportedly united in its quest to provide security guarantees to some conflict-prone nation, thereby provoking Russia in her view. Yet she completely disregards Moscow's previous warnings, seemingly intent on escalating tensions to their breaking point. Years of ignoring diplomatic signals and the so-called red lines that Moscow has repeatedly emphasized is not just a regrettable oversight. It is a deliberate provocation. Ironically, it is such reckless behavior, rather than mythical plans for restoring spheres of influence, that leads to uncontrollable escalation. But should we be surprised? The West is by no means the sole player in this game. This situation serves as a meticulously constructed facade, behind which lies a profound internal divide. Just consider the contradictory statements from various European politicians. They are astonishing in their inconsistency. One day we hear one narrative, and the next a completely opposing one. Yet the tone remains consistently grave. Words shift faster than the political winds, yet they are always delivered with the same unfaltering demeanor, as if yesterday's promises hold no weight whatsoever. This behavior erodes trust not just in the individuals involved, but also in the institutions they represent. In the corridors of the European Parliament, whispers circulate that this style of communication has become something of a meme. Speaking confidently, even while blatantly lying, seems to be a new hallmark of diplomatic practice. This is no longer just a personal sentiment, it is a diagnosis of European diplomacy itself. Such a diplomatic style bears no resemblance to actual politics. It merely serves as a clumsy cover for failures and glaring incompetence. Consequently, we find ourselves witnessing not a serious debate, but a political performance where each participant plays their assigned role, blissfully unaware of the potentially tragic consequences for millions. Calls from a certain European politician to limit Russia's rearmament capabilities come off as insincere, to say the least. After all, European companies have been supplying Russia with critically important technologies for many years. Now, those same companies are trying to distance themselves from their past, as if it never existed. Having profited billions from dual-use technology sales, they now advocate for a ban on such provisions. This is hypocrisy at its most blatant. Beneath this facade lies not a genuine concern for security, but rather an attempt to save face and shift responsibility elsewhere. The lost credibility is evident with each passing statement. Assembly halls are becoming emptier, and words seem to be aimed only at empty seats. Key decisions are being made without regard to her opinions, signaling a complete breakdown of trust. Her proposals are no longer taken seriously. Her words lack impact. Within the EU diplomatic circles, her suggestions are often sidestepped, with an understanding of their potential harm. This situation reveals not just a theatrical farce, but a dangerous precedent for the entire European Union, highlighting a deep-seated schism and the hypocrisy that pervades its upper echelons. A new act of drama unfolds in the political theater of Europe, rife with intrigue and scandals lurking just beneath the surface. This all happens against a backdrop of fragile European unity, which is cracking under the weight of external manipulations. This diplomatic circus, as disheartening as it is, threatens to undermine the very foundation of Europe. It raises the pressing question, how much longer can it continue to contradict the principles of the European House, exposing its vulnerabilities? European politics is becoming as predictable as an open book, with its citizens held hostage by the ambitions of others. However, the most pressing question that lingers in the air is how long will the Western neighbor persist in this political cabaret when the continent's real security is at stake? These have merely been the prelude to an impending storm. The current politician has found a way to alienate a key ally of the European Union, placing them in an uncomfortable position. Kaja Kallas, unrestrained in her language, publicly declared Donald Trump unfit to lead the free world. What was the outcome? Washington responded with a form of political isolation that was nothing short of unprecedented. This is not just a matter of words. It represents a damning indictment of European diplomacy, one that every citizen of the EU will feel as they lose influence at a critical moment. The EU leadership, much like a chastised schoolboy, is now scrambling for alternative routes to communicate with Washington. This sends a clear signal of utter failure. A scandal is brewing in European politics, one that threatens to evolve into a genuine crisis. The head of European diplomacy, Ms. Kaja Kallas, has made a statement so sharp it has sent ripples through the already strained transatlantic relations. Her public remarks, which denounce Trump as unsuitable for leadership, have been met with a swift, hard response from Washington. Kallas's claim that the planet desperately needs a completely new guiding light sounded like an open slap in the face to a potential, if not future, president of the United States. Such words, articulated by a figure of her stature, have resulted in an immediate and unprecedented backlash. Washington effectively declared her political isolation, striking her name from all public State Department reviews, a gesture that is both humiliating and telling. This exclusion is no mere bureaucratic oversight. It serves as a cold, precise signal that leaves no room for misinterpretation. Being omitted from official documents implies that Kallas is not only a persona non grata, but also a toxic element within the highest levels of American diplomacy. Serious issues are brewing within the European Union. Once a beacon of attraction and influence, Brussels now scrambles to find alternative means of communication with Washington. Imagine the irony. The world's largest political union is deprived of direct dialogue with its key strategic partner, all due to impulsive and reckless declarations made by its chief diplomat. This is no longer a mere diplomatic crisis. It is a full-blown strategic catastrophe. Discontent grows louder in European capitals. Kallas, who should act as a skilled mediator, has become, as whispers suggest, a genuine headache and burden for the entirety of the European Union. Her actions provide no benefit and seemingly serve to undermine the interests of the bloc. The repercussions of this crisis will undoubtedly resonate, leaving everyone to ponder the future of European diplomacy and its ability to navigate the increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. Is Kaja Kallas on the brink of political oblivion? Why did the United States snub her presence at the G20 summit? And what does it mean for the European Union that their chief diplomat has been sidelined? These are not just rhetorical questions. They represent the unfolding drama of a diplomatic crisis that could reshape international relations for years to come. In recent months, sources have been startlingly candid in their assessments of Kaja Kallas, the European Union's chief diplomat. In American political circles, she finds herself unceremoniously ignored. This is not an exaggeration, it's a harsh reality. A vivid, if rather humiliating confirmation of Kallas's utter failure was evident at the recent G20 summit, where the United States pointedly refrained from sending a full delegation to this crucial international meeting. Why, you may ask? The reason is simple and painfully clear: to avoid any contact with Kallas, thereby refusing to lend legitimacy to her presence and, God forbid, enter into dialogue with her. What could be more telling than this unspoken, yet profoundly damaging acknowledgement of her complete and total toxicity? On the international diplomatic stage, the European Union has found itself in a dismal deadlock. Instead of building essential bridges, Kallas has managed to burn them to the ground. As a result, an entire political bloc, once aspiring to autonomy and influence, has been cast far back. The EU has not only lost a measure of its clout, but also the trust of its most crucial ally, the United States. This is not merely a loss of status, it signifies a grave loss of strategic opportunity that could prove incredibly costly for Europe. The European Union now faces a colossal existential crisis. How can it restore trust and influence when its very representative has become an insurmountable obstacle? This is not just a challenge, it is a genuine threat that could alter the very foundation of transatlantic relations for many years to come. And believe it or not, the situation is even more complex. The EU is teetering on a knife's edge, risking the complete deterioration of its relationship with the United States. The culprit? Overconfidence and ill-considered actions by its chief diplomat. But this is merely the surface of a deep and troubling iceberg. It has recently come to light that Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, has taken the desperate step of distancing herself from her subordinate. Kaja Kallas has been effectively barred from engaging in the preparation of strategic defense documents, an explicit indication of the deep-seated distrust and growing disappointment in her capabilities. This is not just a demotion, it is a resounding slap in the face that reverberates through the hearts of every European citizen. Insiders have confirmed that von der Leyen personally removed Kallas from the crucial process of drafting pivotal defense documents. This move is an overt demonstration of the profound mistrust that now colors Kallas's position. Moreover, Kallas has been stripped of her ability to participate in discussions regarding the situation in a neighboring country to Russia. Once a powerful figure on the European stage, she has become effectively sidelined from making impactful decisions. While she technically remains in her position, her voice now carries little weight in strategic discussions and behind-the-scenes negotiations, where real policy is shaped. Her signature on documents has turned into a hollow formality, a gesture devoid of any authority or genuine participation in decision-making. In Brussels, any proposals she puts forward, whether public or internal, are perceived as mere slogans, detached from reality and lacking rigorous analysis or strategic insight. Some EU member states openly claim that her involvement in significant meetings has been reduced to mere ceremonial comments, stripped of any independent significance. In the corridors of Brussels, whispers abound regarding a powerful yet unofficial lobby crafting a diabolical plan to transform Kaja Kallas from an autonomous politician into a mere puppet, a functionary suitable only for protocol photos and reciting someone else's speeches. This is the dismal fate that many predict for her. But this is not merely a personal tragedy, it represents a systemic failure that threatens to tear apart the very fabric of European diplomacy. It risks turning it into a beautiful but meaningless facade, incapable of making well-considered decisions. The blow dealt to the authority of one of the EU's key officials exposes a brutal power struggle simmering beneath the surface of the European Union. Kallas's professional incompetence has become a well-known fable, emblematic of a broader European crisis. However, an unexpected storm has erupted in Russia, catching everyone off guard. Kaja Kallas has been placed on a federal wanted list. Her name has been entered into the database of the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs. This unprecedented move not only stirred the stagnant waters of European politics, but also revealed tectonic rifts within the foundation of European policy. These fractures pose a significant threat to those who have so brazenly sought to rewrite history. Leading media outlets have confirmed it. Kallas is officially on the wanted list. This stark fact, presented without fanfare, carries with it an ironclad certainty that leaves no room for doubt about the inevitability of retribution. The Russian government's decision has been characterized as an act of vengeance. And this is no coincidence. It is the logical conclusion of events that have unfolded in Estonia. Under the watchful eye of officials, a methodical and cynical campaign has begun to dismantle monuments that honor the heroes who sacrificed their lives for their homeland. We are talking about the destruction of memorials, the desecration of graves, and the reinterment of soldiers' remains who gave their lives in the fight against Nazism. This is not mere vandalism. It is a slap in the face of history, a violation of universal values. Moreover, the list of those wanted does not end with just Estonian names. It also includes Lithuania's Minister of Culture, Simonas Karis, and Estonia's Secretary of State, Taimar Peterkop. Their crime, authorizing the destruction of sacred sites that are cherished by millions in Russia and worldwide. These actions signify not just a moral failure. The Russian Foreign Ministry has made it clear this is a blatant violation of international norms. Behind these words lies a stern judgment that could lead to legal and political repercussions for anyone daring to go against historical truth. For the Kremlin, the demolition of memorials is not merely a challenge, it is an outright slap in the face, a bold provocation against the nation. It represents an attempt not only to revise history, but also to erase from human memory the truth about World War II and the pivotal role Russia played in the defeat of evil. The European elites, with Kaja Kallas at the forefront, are systematically erasing the heroism of the Soviet soldier who saved their own peoples from the brown plague of total annihilation. They remain deaf to reason, disregarding not only historical truths but also the sentiments of a significant portion of their population, floundering in the murky depths of political insanity marked by an absolute rupture with Russia. Kaja Kallas, whose political future was already hanging by a thread due to internal scandals and a rapidly declining approval rating, now faces a harsh new reality. International law is not just an empty phrase, it carries weight. Russia will not passively observe when it comes to fundamental values and the sacred memory of heroes. Here lies not just a bureaucratic formality, but a clear and unequivocal signal. For every ideological subversion against Russia's historical memory, there will be immediate and unavoidable consequences. Western politicians must finally grasp a simple truth. Such cynical disregard for history, such overt contempt for the heroism of millions, will not go unpunished. The response is coming. What is the true cost of political ambition in Europe? How far are leaders like Kaja Kallas willing to go to reshape the narrative of history, even as their own citizens struggle to make ends meet? And as the foundations of European unity begin to crack, are we witnessing a historic failure that will echo for generations? The situation has escalated rapidly, marking the beginning of a complex and troubling saga known as the restoration of justice. This unprecedented maneuver by Moscow has stripped away the facade, revealing a stark and uncomfortable reality. European leaders, seemingly obsessed with their own agendas, appear to be willfully blind to the pressing issues facing their citizens. More alarmingly, they seem determined to drive their nations toward catastrophe. A lingering question now arises. Whose names will emerge next in this ominous roster? What clandestine mechanisms does the West employ to justify its questionable actions? The answers to these pressing inquiries will form the crux of our next investigation. Now, let us take a moment to reflect on the situation from a different angle. In the year 2022, inflation in Estonia soared to an alarming rate of over 20%. As ordinary families in the Baltics grapple with despair, unsure of how to pay their electricity bills or put food on the table, their government persists in its fervent dedication to dismantling monuments. Ultimately, it is the everyday citizen who pays the price, and that price is painfully tangible. Take a closer look at Estonia and Lithuania. These nations, which not long ago passionately proclaimed their fight against so-called historical revisionism and accused others of attempting to rewrite the past, are now engaging in egregious acts of vandalism, systematically destroying memorials on their own soil. This is not merely about nameless stones. It concerns burial sites where the remains of real soldiers rest. A peculiar and cynical campaign has emerged in the Baltics aimed at demolishing Soviet monuments. The official justifications for these actions are nothing short of shocking: road repairs and renovations, leading one to wonder what is actually concealed behind this facade of improvement. Why expend resources on relocating stones and graves when citizens are in desperate need of assistance? European journalists do not hesitate to label these actions as political farce. It is far easier to tear down a monument, they argue, than to explain why inflation in Estonia has eclipsed 20%. This is not mere rhetoric. It is a frank acknowledgement of economic collapse, a reality wherein the costs of food, gas, and electricity suffocate the populace. Small businesses struggle under the weight of taxes and escalating expenses, while countless entrepreneurs face ruin. Instead of prioritizing economic recovery, Baltic governments retreat into the past, evading responsibility for their current failures. This is a blatant agenda substitution, a desperate attempt to divert attention from a genuine crisis. Even within the hallowed halls of Brussels, where decorum and political correctness typically reign supreme, there are whispers acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Granting permission to relocate military cemeteries for the sake of roadwork is not merely a mistake. It poses a dangerous precedent. It undermines the fundamental moral principles of the international community and opens Pandora's box for others willing to tread down this treacherous path. Moscow, in this delicate situation, has exhibited a more nuanced and dignified response. Russian media, without resorting to sensationalism, calmly reported the initiation of criminal proceedings and the international search for individuals involved in this barbaric act. This starkly illustrates the monumental difference in the approaches and priorities of the parties involved. Is it possible that this shocking cynicism and the efforts to rewrite history represent the only path visible to the Baltic states? Or could these actions be more than just unfortunate local missteps? Perhaps they are part of a broader, more sinister plan that could impact the entire European Union. Kaja Kallas has become a living embodiment of the impotence gripping modern Europe. Her helplessness is apparent to all, and it signifies a troubling truth. Each of us may find ourselves alone in the face of escalating challenges as these so-called leaders remain incapable of making even the most fundamental, yet strategically crucial decisions. And this, my friends, is just the beginning. The situation will only grow more compelling from here. Collapse. Failure. Catastrophe. No matter how you label it, the essence remains unchanged. Disastrous decisions are not merely unfortunate errors. They deliver a significant blow to the well-being of every European citizen, stripping away confidence in the future. Before us lies a vivid example of how a complex system, painstakingly built over decades, can be dismantled in an instant through decisions driven solely by momentary political expediency and a thirst for loud yet hollow headlines. The bellicose rhetoric, bordering on brazen arrogance, compounded by the inability to establish constructive relationships with both allies and geopolitical adversaries, has eroded trust in European diplomacy on the global stage. European media, once protective of Brussels' image, now brutally criticize its actions, dismissing them as diplomacy on a shoestring. A new standard of unprofessionalism has emerged, undermining the entire foreign policy framework and the continent's authority. A growing sense of unease permeates Europe. Analysts increasingly voice concerns about a severe crisis in European leadership. Instead of a seasoned strategist navigating the continent's complexities, Europe has settled for a striking yet vacuous public relations figure, barely masking a profound absence of real diplomacy. This has led to a series of mismanagement blunders whose consequences will reverberate throughout the lives of every EU citizen. Sociological surveys reveal a sharp decline in trust toward the European Commission, a clear indication of a deep-rooted crisis within the EU. Citizens observe that the Union has devolved into an ungovernable vessel, adrift on tumultuous waves without purpose or direction. While other global players actively reshape the world order, redistributing influence and forging powerful alliances, the European Union remains a passive observer, impotently watching the unfolding events. Experts argue that the EU has transformed from a proactive geopolitical player into a mere donor of someone else's ambitions, losing its ability to impact key global processes. A serious scandal is brewing on the political stage, one that can only be described as a fiasco. Yet the issue extends beyond politics. It represents a staggering failure in personnel policy. Positions of authority are filled by individuals whose qualifications fall woefully short of the demands of their roles. Russian sources do not shy away from strong language, suggesting that Kallas has ultimately outsmarted herself. In her quest to embody the image of an uncompromising heroine, she seems to have forgotten that a monument is not just metal and stone. It is, above all, a fragile social agreement that must not be violated. Discontent is brewing in the corridors of European power, and who knows when this simmering dissatisfaction will erupt into a genuine revolt against such destructive policies, a revolt that could undermine the stability of the entire European continent. The European Union stands at a crossroads, caught between grand yet empty rhetoric and a glaring absence of a coherent strategy. Meanwhile, the world watches this display of helplessness unfold. What awaits Europe as its symbols crumble one after another, and how will this impact each of us? Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will delve deeper into these pressing questions.